Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimale in Abuja. Tonight, we'll be previewing what is going to be happening tomorrow across different parts of the country. In some states, there will be election in maybe one or so polling units. Yeah, but so some of these elections are because of the need to replace those who are dead or those who abandoned their mandate for some other positions, or those caught as ordered rerun of elections in some areas. So those are the elections that will happen tomorrow across the 26 states where these court-ordered and replacements of persons in the elections from 2023 general elections. Just sit around everyone because we need to find out what INEC has done and what is going on ahead. What lessons do we have? And if there's anything, what can we be looking forward to? Plus, I will take you also into the heart of governance in the FCT as former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, is in the start. Stick around with me, everyone. But first, let's have you with some of your political roundup stories.
The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Nyesom Wike, is assuring residents of the Gaba Tokulo community in Buari Area Council that all unfinished projects in the area will be completed. The minister said this while flagging off the emergency rehabilitation of Gaba Tokulo Road in Buari Area Council, Abuja. He also promised to address the insecurity challenges in the area.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Jagaban of Nigeria, who this morning has instructed me that everything that Buari Area Council requests should be given to you.
The governor of Adamawa State, Umar Fintiri, has returned to the state after the judgment of the Supreme Court affirming him as the duly elected governor of the state. Governor Fintiri arrived at Aliyu Mustafa International Airport, Yola, and was received by a large crowd of supporters and party faithful who thronged the airport and lined up on the major streets leading to the airport, chanting solidarity songs.
I want to assure you that we're on board with every citizen here. We're on board with our Adamawa people to ensure that we take our state to the greater height.
And ahead of the by-election in 3 local government areas of Jalingo, Yoro, and Zing Federal Constituency, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has commenced the distribution of sensitive materials to affected areas. The election is scheduled to hold in 658 polling units to fill the vacuum created by the death of Samaila Mehanchi, who was elected at the last general election but died before his inauguration. The Ondo State Governor, Mr. Lucky Ayedatiwa, has appointed 6 commissioner nominees and 3 special advisors for his cabinet. The nominees include popular Abuja-based lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Kayode Ajulo. Some of the commissioner nominees were part of the cabinet of the late governor of the state, Mr. Rotimi Akeredolu.
Thank you so much, everyone. Let's take on the matter relating to the elections from tomorrow. The election is expected to hold in 26 states, 73 local government areas, and 7,681 polling units. And in these areas, 4,228,502 registered voters with 3,970,039 PVCs collected and 258,468 uncollected PVCs in this area. So I told you there are 2 types of elections happening tomorrow, rerun and by-elections. For the by-elections, elections will be holding in 24 local government and 4,294 polling units, 2,370,590 registered voters in those areas, and the court-ordered rerun elections will be happening in 49 local government areas with 3,389 polling units. Let's get a sense of what is going on and what we should be expecting tomorrow. I'm being joined by an election observer, an election expert actually, a lawyer and executive director of Yaga Africa, Mr. Samson Itodo, he joins us live here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Itodo, for joining us.
Thanks, Shew, and good evening.
We're back into another round of elections. This time around,
on the day Nigeria is playing Angola.
It's good news, though.
It's good news. I will pray it stays this way.
Absolutely. And I hope that it's going to be good news tomorrow, though. What do you feel, first and foremost, because of some of your disappointment, and Yaga Africa and some of your colleagues have voiced out your disappointment in the 2023 general elections, either in the manner in which politicians behaved or in the manner in which INEC conducted itself. But generally, what are your feelings? What's your feeling like towards tomorrow? Is the eve of the elections?
Well, I think in the states where these elections are being conducted, in some cases they are quite competitive, and then you see there's enthusiasm on the part of people. But quite frankly, we don't see, that frenzy and that deep interest in this election. I think there are some Nigerians who are unaware that there will be elections tomorrow. I think it was when the police announced that there will be restriction of movement in some of those locations, that a lot of people started asking questions whether elections is going to hold. But it tells you something about our elections, that once elections are not conducted within, the parameters of a general election, there's disinterest on the part of people, especially against the background where in the fallout of the last election and the off-cycle election, the level of trust in the electoral process have continued to do what? To decline because of several reasons, either the attitude of politicians or the way and manner INEC managed the election. So people are going into this election tomorrow. We at Yaga Africa are projected low turnout because of the disinterest in this election, sadly so. But the voters in those constituencies need to show up because, one, if in your state or in your constituency you are voting in a rerun election, the court ordered the rerun election because in the first election conducted by INEC, there were some challenges, right? Or the court issued, orders against the background of the inability of political parties to comply with the rules. So you have another opportunity to go out tomorrow to vote for a candidate and a party of your choice, and don't, relegate or abandon that responsibility that you have. But for those who are in states where there are by-elections, so for instance, if you look at states like Yobe and Ebonyi that have senatorial elections, senatorial elections are like governorship elections.
Absolutely.
And so they are also very important elections that people should show up to cast their vote, expecting that their votes will count. Now, there are several issues for this election. We are coming against the background of the off-cycle elections, where we saw an absolute disregard for the rule of law, absolute disregard for the Electoral Act and INEC guidelines, where politicians went on rampage, compromised election officials, and completed result sheets before accreditation and voting commenced in some of those, especially in a state like Kogi State. We cannot abandon or forget and relegate that particular incident because politicians are known to always adopt bad precedent. And so going into tomorrow's elections, the voters should be vigilant that once these sensitive materials that INEC has deployed to the constituencies are brought to your polling unit, insist that the presiding officer should display the ballot papers and the result sheets and confirm that the result sheets have not been pre-filled. Also confirm that the BVAS records 0 before the commencement of accreditation and voting. But more importantly, is that the voters should also insist on accreditation with the BVAS. Because as you can see from the judgments of the Supreme Court, that the BVAS has come to stay, that electronic accreditation has come to stay, and the Supreme Court reinforced the position of the Electoral Act. So you have a right to insist that you must be accredited using the BVAS and do not allow anybody to discourage you from getting accredited in tomorrow's elections.
Beyond that is also the fact, one of the things that you have raised, these steps are very key and very important. And I imagine my producer to put up a video of what a polling unit looks like. Perhaps we can talk through some of these scenarios which play out in the polling unit. So in a voting process, for example, and you have said it, in your accreditation process, ensure that the right things are being done. When you cast your ballot, don't go away until the ballots are being counted. And when that happens, ensure that they enter validly the number of the vote, and they empty it, and they also show you that the packets of the ballot are well sealed, so that it's not been tampered with before the elections. And we saw that those who did that in the general elections who said, no, this has been tampered with. You have to show us. And usually, if there are 1,000 polling papers, it will be written there. And people must ensure those things. The other part which you've raised is a point that people need to ensure that polling officers enter and paste the result on the wall. And it must be what has been announced. They take pictures of it and keep it for themselves. And these are some of the jobs that the agents also need to do. But Samson, let me take you to something quite interesting, and it's about the projection of Yiaga Africa. I know you probably will set out your PVT system to monitor the elections tomorrow, as you always do. But I fear what happened in the senatorial election, where over 1 million, almost 1.5 million voters are registered in that polling unit. Guess what happened? In that Lagos senatorial election, only 9% voters came out. Out of over almost 1.5 million, about 104,000 voted in that election in 2020. And there are those who are afraid that there might be a replay of this. Now, in Lagos, the police has come out to say there won't be restrictions in the entire state. It's only within the area. What can we do? Is it late in the day to start getting people mobilized and get to the need of them going out tomorrow to vote?
Well, I don't think it's late in the day. But, Seun, let's break this down and why this election is important. The Constitution is clear on the criteria and the benchmark for declaring a winner. What do I mean? To emerge as a winner in tomorrow's elections, because all the elections are legislative elections, all you need is simple majority. What it means is one vote can make a difference.
Can make a senator.
Yeah, can make a senator. And even if 5%, in fact, let me put it this way, if only 5 people show up tomorrow to cast their votes, the candidate that gets 4 out of 5 of those votes will make it to the National Assembly.
You're going too far, Samson. If only the candidate comes out to vote for himself tomorrow, it becomes valid, isn't it?
And this is very dangerous. It's dangerous on 2 fronts, because it now makes the elections very, very sensitive and competitive. This is why people need to pay close attention. Unlike executive elections, where there's a threshold for majority of votes and then a certain threshold for securing votes in a number of local governments or states. In this particular case, simple majority is the way to determine who wins the election. This is why people need to be very, very sensitive, critical, and vigilant on tomorrow's election, because any simple action or inaction can actually tilt the outcome in favor of any candidate. And this is why it's important for people to show up. You know, it's just unfortunate that you have people sitting in the National Assembly, in State House of Assembly, and they only won election with just 7,000 votes. In fact,
it happened
if you recall, in
3,000 votes at
3,000
House of Reps member.
Even in Abia, it was just how many? It was less than 10%. Well, if a governor sits today in a government house in Anambra with only 10% turnout in the elections, voters, what do you expect? And it doesn't say well about political legitimacy. It doesn't say well about electoral process. This is why Nigerians and voters in those locations, those constituencies, should come out and cast their vote. INEC has demonstrated preparedness for this election. That's not.
Are you convinced?
In terms of INEC preparations for tomorrow's elections, we're convinced that INEC is prepared. But it's not just about preparation. But what we have seen is the people who are on the field, and what Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo has taught us, which reinforced, what we've always said, was that politicians are still in the business of compromising election officials few days before the elections, just in a bid to subvert the process. Only a compromised election official would have completed the result sheets even before accreditation and voting took place. But it was there in public domain, where NYC, one of the NYC or ad hoc officials was caught with how much? With about 1.something million naira. And the big questions people are asking, Nigerians need to know what has happened to those people who were found wanting. Those INEC officials in Kogi who pre-filled the result sheet, what has happened to them? Nigerians want to know if INEC has held these people to account to inspire confidence. Yeah. Because if this will cause tomorrow and no consequential action is taken, there's no way you're going to inspire confidence on the parts of Nigerians.
I mean, when you say that I'm not a skeptic, but, I may have my skepticism about INEC, because when INEC is playing dumb in some areas, I'm always worried. When INEC is refusing to speak in some areas, how can you have elections and INEC is not willing to speak about controversies and lack of clarity in areas? When you say INEC, I want to be disappointed tomorrow that INEC will be on top of the game. But when INEC begins to show this kind of behavior that I've seen them show in the last few days, when they are tongue-tied about an election happening tomorrow, I have my fears. But let me allow Alhaji Abaji Sani, who has since joined us from I used to see the chair of HIPAC. He's a former chair.
No, I'm still the chairman.
Yes, the chair. Yes. The national chairman of Interparty Advisory Council. Thank you so much indeed. Of course, campaigns are over. But from the point of view of political parties, do you have confidence? Because learning from what happened in 2023 general elections, do you think INEC is really ready?
Well, Seun, I think Nigeria will have come of age when you talk about conducting elections, especially you mentioned 2023. And I think on the part of INEC, they have internalized the responsibility, that is the mandate given to them to ensure that we have free, fair, credible elections. In terms of preparedness and in terms of even readiness, because I watched the clip on Plateau, and the National Commissioner, that is Mohamed Aruna, who was sent to Plateau to supervise the elections, explained, to the people that one of the reasons why, one of the parties was not in the ballot is because there was a court of appeal, a judgment that removed, that disqualified the candidate. And when the candidate is disqualified, and then there's going to be a rerun, and the precedence we have is that disqualified candidate is not allowed to participate in that election. There have been cases like that. So if you are talking about these rerun elections and by-elections, I think INEC has demonstrated the fact that they are ready. I
thought they did that too during before the elections of 2023. We thought they were ready.
Yes, but people are always quick to blame the politicians. But the fact of the matter is that, you see, this is a social process. It takes time, to get it right. It's not mechanical. It's not something that you can just change overnight, And I think, I want you to understand, see, what I have seen from the Supreme Court judgment, I believe that there is some deliberate attempt to ensure that Nigerians begin to have confidence in the votes that were cast during elections. I'm talking about the judgments on the governorship elections and things like that. So I think I want to give it to President Tinubu, because they must be working behind the scenes to ensure that people's votes are not, in any way disregarded. That's why most of the judgments that were given by Supreme Court were in affirmation of what INEC has declared as the result of that election. And I think it's a way of building confidence in the system. I'm not saying that things went, completely right. So that will give Nigerians confidence in tomorrow, that is the February 3rd, which is tomorrow, tomorrow's election, to come out, because people will now know that votes count. It did count, because if votes did not count, most of the governors that we have today may not be on their seats, perhaps. So I think INEC has demonstrated that they are ready, and I want to assure Nigerians that we are going to see a different, results, as far as performance is concerned, and building confidence of Nigerians in the system. Because
what do you see, Alhaji Sani? Tomorrow, police at the headquarters are talking about the deployment, how they will ensure they will forestall or stop any kind of criminal or violent activities towards the election. But there are those who are afraid that do not lock down a state because of one polling unit election or few polling units in the entire 26 or so states. There are just about 7,681. Only 73 local government areas will be having election spread across. In fact, in one state there is only one polling unit that will be having election. So, what do you make of the security architecture? Because we also know that during elections in Nigeria are so technical such that the movement here and there could cause some kind of manipulation of the process. Right? They said those who are having VIP protections will have to be stopped if they are going to vote. But when the movement are fluid, how do you ensure this kind of to forestall or curtail this kind of situation?
No, I will expect maximum security in states like Plateau,
okay,
and other flashpoints like that, because we've been having challenges, on the Plateau. And I think whatever the security outfit architecture is going to deployed to that place to secure the voters, I don't think it will be too much to do.
Well, there are three states, large stands,
yes,
that are major. Plateau has 6 local government areas. So
yes,
6 local government area
yes,
is a lot.
Yes.
In Yobe East, the central election, there are 7 LGAs there and 992 polling units. In Ebonyi South, there are 5 local government areas, 870 PUs. In Plateau North, it is 2,266 PUs of 6 local government areas.
Yeah.
So these are the ones that there will be that has more cluster of voters.
Exactly. Yeah, I understand. That's why I'm saying that it will not make sense like Niger State. You can't go and lock down Niger State because it's only one local government or something like that. That elections would be there will be a by-election. So, but there are states that, like Seun, even if there's no elections, we need security outfit in the security to be deployed to those areas. And I like to really commend the efforts of the governor of Plateau State, because he has demonstrated statesmanship by not allowing the issue of his party not being on the ballot to degenerate into some crisis, because immediately the announcement was made, it became tensed. And I know he got to work. I'm sure he talked to his people that no, all is not lost. So that's the kind of thing we expect from the governors, that you don't think that everything begins and stops by winning. You must allow some space, and whatever happens, let peace, let people's lives and property be protected. So, and that's what the Plateau State governor has demonstrated. So I really commend his efforts, and I think we are going to have peace, in that election, and I expect that election to go in a very smooth, manner. Because
if you have any fear as
yes,
to the conduct of the election tomorrow that you think INEC and security agencies need to look out for, what would that be?
Well, the fear will be of the external, factors, because we have had banditry, we've had issues of insurgency and things like those. Ones are not about elections, but they could, if care is not taken, they could disrupt, elections. That's why I'm saying, in areas where we are having so many attacks, whatever the security outfits should do, they should do it, even extra, because these people are there to cause, havoc and then create unnecessary tension, So those are the external, attacks that I think one would want the security people to be very alert, to be alert, as to ensure that it does not disrupt the political...
Something, you're a lawyer, so give us an understanding. The court-ordered rerun elections, those who will say, these are things that we could have forestalled if things were done rightly. And this also goes into how political parties and politicians conduct themselves. Because if you look at the heart of the meat of the matter, in those cases where elections are court had ordered these rerun elections, these are things that could have been averted rather than allow Nigeria to spend money getting people back. And those who have gotten appointment, I'm not sure they were really, really serious about getting to that office. Now they have to, Nigeria needs to get people back, print ballot papers, conduct elections, logistics, operational issues, and all what have you. Going forward, how do we avert these repeated spending money on elections?
Well, so for by-elections, where you have resignation, where you have death, political parties, should be allowed to nominate
and replace
naturally. You don't have to go back. And there was a bill that was sponsored in the National Assembly, but I know it was rejected. In fact, just last year, it was rejected at the Senate because the whole philosophy that underpins our electoral jurisprudence with respect to candidacy is that votes in an election belong to a political party because a party sponsors candidate. And it's a rational argument to make. Because
versus INEC.
Exactly. If the votes belong to a political party, then the party should, through its own democratic internal process, nominate one person that goes in to replace, to that vacant seat. But to go back to conduct elections, it costs the country a lot of money because most of the elections, like the senatorial elections, it costs a lot of money. And I'll tell you, it costs as high as over 300 to 400 million naira just to conduct a senatorial election, if not more, given the inflation as at today. But on the other hand, and there are two institutions that we need to actually put this at their doorstep. If you look at the judgments, like you said, first is either a function of non-compliance on the part of those who manage the elections at the field level, or as a result of inconsistent application of the guidelines and the rules. And in this case, INEC is to be held to account. This is why issues around training, issues around internal oversight, and then sanctioning bad behavior on the part of electoral officials is critical. We cannot have a situation where election officials are deliberately sabotaging the process, and there is no sanction for it. Because if you check, some of those are just careless mistakes that were made by officials in the field. The second is on the part of the political actors. And I think that politicians also need to change their attitude towards elections. This whole zero-sum attitude towards politics, this do-or-die approach towards politics is what accounts for some of these challenges that we have within our electoral process. And that we need to come to a point where when politicians are campaigning and canvassing, they should also demonstrate fidelity to democratic values, that you do not have to subvert the process just because you want to serve people. You can't force yourself on people. If you've been rejected by people, respect the wishes of the people. But also internally within political parties, how candidates are nominated is also critical, because the whole candidate nomination process is what gives birth to these kinds of remedial actions that have economic consequences for the country, social and political consequences for the country. Because how do you explain a situation where a primaries are conducted, delegates are substituted midnight, the parties who are involved and candidates who are involved are not carried along, or you have a situation where certain aspirants are not allowed to buy party nomination forms, or cases where parties intentionally nominate candidates who do not meet the qualifications of the law, or even when a primaries have been conducted in line with the provisions of the law, or you see unlawful and illegal substitution of candidates. Yes, the Supreme Court have said that issues around candidate nomination are internal affairs of political parties. Yeah. But you can only uphold that in a context where you have political parties that have respect for their own rules. But in a case where you have parties who don't have respect for their own rules, then the candidate selection process would always be challenged. This is why we continually remain a litigious society. Look at the petitions. If you look at the pre-election matters versus the election petitions, you can see the number of cases that went to court just challenging candidate nomination because of the attitude of our political class towards managing their candidate nomination process.
Yeah, let's anchor on this note. And Alhaji Abayigisani, if there is one major lesson that Nigerians learned from the 2023 elections and going into this election, what we need to all look at, because something had told Nigerians to eyes open and shine their eyes. What would that be?
You also told them.
Yes, I also did, that Nigerians should shine their eyes and look beyond the surface.
Yeah, well,
and it's because of you politicians.
Well, not so much so. I think if there's anything really that Nigerians should give attention to, more than any other thing, is the entire system itself. What am I saying? The manner by which the INEC officials are appointed, it's very, very, it's germane to us getting free, fair, and credible elections. Recently, some recs were appointed who Nigerians came out to say that these people are members of political parties. Aside from that, we look at the issues of these primordial things, sentiments, which we have. Nigerians should try to see how we divorce, politics from those primordial sentiments, because if primordial sentiments are the things that would dictate, the actors, the flag bearers, who represent political parties, then you already have an internal conflict, in the system itself. So going forward, we must, rise above these sentiments and be able to select people to a very large extent, based on their track records, that this person can deliver, and should be given the votes.
Alhaji Abayigisani, we're looking forward to your optimism. I will buy it tonight. At least I will hope that INEC will do well and keep to their work. But there's something sinister that I feel. But I just hope that all is well, because when INEC is not talking, could be a problem. But thank you so much, Alhaji Abayigisani, Chairman, Interparty Advisory Council, and the National Chairman of the ADP. Mr. Samson Itodo, who is a lawyer, an election expert, and the Executive Director of Yiaga Africa. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight.
Always a delight.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. As we are hopeful for tomorrow, those of us who live in the FCT, how much of hope do we have for the women who want to be in politics? Do you have hopes of the affirmative action? Next on the program, we look at the Federal Capital Administration, women in politics, the APC, and what they have promised Nigerians. Dio Benjamin's Lani will be joining me next on the program. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Our attention is on the administration and governance in the Federal Capital Territory, and also issues relating to the role of women in politics. A lot is happening in the FCT under the Nyesom Wike as the Minister of the FCT. And recently, there was an office created, the Women Affairs Secretariat of the Federal Capital Territory Administration. And the president recently appointed the woman who served as the Grand Matron of the Hope Again for FCT Women in Politics as the Mandate Secretary. Dio Benjamin's Lani joins me live here on the program tonight. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's good to see women. I mean, rarely do I have women on my program, but when I have one and it's looking as shining as yours, we need to appreciate. Thank you so much.
Maybe you need to do more to up the numbers.
We are trying.
On your program.
We're trying. First and foremost, the issue of affirmative action. A lot of women are shying away from politics. And you know the kind of energy and intelligence women bring into things professionally, corporate-wise. You wonder why they shy away from politics, though.
Sure, let me give you new optics. From my experience as a disruption in the political space in the FCT, there are a lot of women who do not shy away from politics. They're at the grassroots level. They're the women at the grassroots level who, it's the elite women who shy away. But the grassroots women, they own the roots of political dynamism when it comes to local activation for the political campaigns. It's the women who vote. It's the women who don't end up being voted for, but it's the women who do the legwork, the homework, We just have to do a lot more when it comes to the old boys network.
Yeah, so the thing is, we say, okay, agitation, and I'm a he for she. I advocate for women. I've always looked forward to having more women. In fact, doing the affirmative action to have at least 35% of women guests on my program in a year, just to also align with the principle.
This is the 2nd of February. I will give you great opportunity going forward.
So the question is, yes, the agitation for women playing more role, and not only in terms of numbers, but also in terms of activity and in terms of impact. But again, is the fact that the quality of women in the fray, can we trust them? These women
what's
in
the
politics.
quality of men in the fray that we end up trusting? You don't necessarily trust when it comes to political selection. It is what is thrust at you. This is the reality of politics. And with the men, it's not because we trust them, but because they have been thrust and we have come to accept. That's what it is. You're talking about women and the quality of this. It's about our intentionality. I found that a woman in the political process and space must be the first person to approve and prove herself. Not so much as a woman competing with the men, but a woman who completes the process as a woman with men, yes, dominating the field. But the opportunity for a woman, therefore, is to have a singular impact in that field. Many times, women are patronized to represent as mothers. You know, we give us, yes, I'm a mother personified. But I didn't run as a mother. I ran as a model for leadership. I ran as a model for affirmative audacity. And not because I was doing it from a position or place of activism, but the simple advocacy and understanding as I continue to scale through the exposure, the experience, and the intentionality that politics, truly, if you love people, it is the highest level of advocacy for humanity. If you love people and you are there with the heart to do it in purity. Now, you must also, as a woman or anyone in the political process, understand the reality of politics. It is transactional before it becomes a transformational model. That's why I say, as a woman, our resilience must come in the place of having a traction of being intentional as models of leadership for political purpose and pursuit.
And the worry is your political party. You couldn't get a ticket to the senatorial, you didn't win the senatorial election in the FCT. You wanted to be the senator representing the FCT. That didn't happen. But a woman is there
exactly
from the Labour Party.
Exactly.
So you are happy with that?
No. I'll tell you what I'm happy with. I'm happy with the fact that I was able to break, destroy, completely demystify the fact that a woman or anyone shouldn't have run because FCT belonged to one. And I was very clear. I remember, I've forgotten it was at NTA, he interviewed me and he said, but Madam, aren't you afraid? How can you face and you're not afraid? I said, and why should I be afraid? In the first place, you don't run with fear. She who dares wins. You run because you dare. And if you're a woman running, just run, even if you're going to run afraid, run brave. And what I did tell him, however, is that it's time for a woman to win. I didn't just say that from some place of sentimental delusion. I said it because I sat with someone and we did the mathematics. And we realized that if the APC wanted to win in the FCT, it could not go head for head with the incumbent, with another man to that man. That the best thing to use would be the power of a woman with intentionality in the political place and process. She would have to be a woman who had an engagement where she was popular enough. She had reputational pedigree. She also had that drill down, rooted space in the political space of North Central FCT capital city. She was also able to work with what should be the Christian demographic, the youth, the AMAC, where you have the highest number of youth-driven people, people in enterprise, people in media. Who else but Dayo Benjamin Lani? I was right, and I was right. However, politics is what it is. Now, you want to say that in your party, it was negative. It's still my party that gave me my position today.
That was a question I will ask.
Yes.
Now, is your party just playing lip service about women in politics?
Do I look like lip service?
No, but I'm saying
you.
your party. You are a member of the party, but the
Yes.
structure of the party is one thing. What they profess is another thing. Whether or not they are walking the talk is another.
It's not just APC. From A to Z, any political proclivity has what they do with the lip in service and with the behind-the-scenes politics. Politics is BTS. Behind the scenes, you and I know, setting up the studio and everything you're putting together has what makes it look like it looks. And the truth is, where I say that perception is king, content is queen. And it is that content, ultimately, that becomes the political driver of the processes that you and I, through our altruism, let me use that, it's not a big English word, but I mean for some people, they'll say, she's come with this big, but it's true. We must be altruistic. You must still hold the highest ideals at the highest level of your idyllic projection. Whatever you're doing, whether an entrepreneur, whether you bake cakes, or you arrange flowers, or you are playing football tonight, and you want to be, we've got ideals, we are driving for it, and the goals we want to score have to be goals that we predetermine by our courage of conviction in running with whatever it is. So yes, I went into APC because the ruling party rules. Now, that the ruling party can fail in a time of certain political expectations, and of course, when it comes to the popular word when you're doing campaigns, it's permutations of campaigns, elections, and selections of candidates. In the final processes, you end up with who you are shocked to find out emerges. But the reality is this. Everything BTS politics has brought you to that point. Now, what you do, and this is what I had to say when I was invited, privileged, to the United Nations General Assembly by UNDP Africa to speak as a woman in politics who had failed. And I said, how did I fail? First and foremost, let every woman understand, if you ran, you're a trophy, you are not a stigma. Many people don't realize that when you go through politics and lose an election, you go through the 4 stages of grief. You actually grieve. You don't just bleed, you grieve. You lost something living, pulsating, alive left you. And if you were sincerely, truly in it, then you are going to grieve to come through it. Many times people don't want to grieve through that process. And I tell women, grieve through it, but don't leave the room. Don't give your space away.
Let me take you up on the Women's Affairs Secretariat of the FCT.
Yes.
A lot is going on. The battle to chase away the bandits and those who are abductors and secure. The minister is talking tough and say, look, we'll give them fire for fire. That is what we want against these terrible human beings who are taking people by force and collecting money from their families. But the question is, Women Affairs Secretaries, what is it about it for the women in the FCT?
I will start with what His Excellency, the Honorable Minister, stated the day that I was sworn in 101 days ago on the 24th of October, 2023. He said women are a project, and we need a women's secretariat to direct the project of hope, renewed hope for women. He wasn't just talking politics and dialectics. He understood that with Her Excellency, the First Lady's project on the Renewed Hope Initiative, Her Excellency, the Distinguished Senator Oluremi Tinubu, she also needed a platform with which in the FCT, not through the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, but through the instrumentality of the administration of the Federal Capital Territory Administration, be able to reach 62 wards, 6 area councils, and all of the demographic of women, adolescent girls, with those with disabilities, those in vulnerable spaces, and begin to drive impact through the advocacy of renewed hope projects. Now, when His Excellency Nyesom Wike set this up, he was very clear that he wanted something innovative, he wanted something that would be agile, something that would be dynamic, but still at the same time would reach the people, women as indigent and non-indigent. And they would need a bridge. They will need somebody who, in speaking the language, is not speaking the language of Gwari, Gwagwalada, Gwagi, no. The language of an administration that has truly come to demonstrate the political will, not just to care, but to serve the hope of the people.
Those will be asking the question, what has the FCT done for the FCT women?
What has the FCT done for the FCT women? I have given
speaking.
them a secretariat that is now doing. Let me tell you something. As I came in, 24th, I hit the ground running because I was hit by the 16 days activism of the United Nations to unite, to invest against gender-based violence all across the world with our orange color. The Honorable, the distinguished senator of the FCT, Reti King-Wige, has set up an Orange the World walkathon, and she was deliberate about aligning all of the different varied activities of women within that 16-day reference, from the Women Affairs Ministry to NGOs, women groups, everyone come together and let's work together. And what I loved about it is that it served an answer, or how do I put it? It served a repositioning of a narrative that women don't work with women. Women worked together to work together to bring the message of the 16 days activism. But what we did uniquely in the FCT, yes, we did that as a show of unity, because that is what Abuja is. The face of Nigeria is here. The message of Nigeria to the world is here in the capital city. And therefore, what we're able now to do was to trigger what became an advocacy. For us, we now went to the 6 area councils, to the 17 chiefdoms, beginning in Abaji with the honor of Abaji and his wife, the royal matriarch, Her Royal Highness Hawa, and we were able to get them first. His Royal Highness as the principal gatekeeper, paramount ruler of Nigeria, to take social-cultural patriarchy and bring it to a place of speaking for not just women and the girl child, but for the administration that has come to bring what they had never in the history of FCT experienced before, an administration that had come to touch them where they needed it.
Are you giving them anything? Because these are hard and tough times too.
Of course we are giving them.
What are you practically
in the first place, in terms of the full mandate-ship, education, we're already reworking and restructuring the schools. The other day, I wish I had given you that, just on Tuesday, I went 2 hours to a village after Rubochi called Kulo. In that village, there's an old groundnut kuli mill, rice mill, that had been set up here by the legacy of Her Excellency, the late Mariam Babangida. It's still there. For 15 years, the security guard without pay has kept the key, has preserved, and that place has not been vandalized. We went there. Now, what we're doing is we're taking, just like Mr. Project, our FCT minister is doing, taking projects that are moribund and now reviving them, resuscitating them, going to the people. The district head ruler, literally, he was in tears. He couldn't believe it. I went there, I didn't have much. You know, you don't need much to make people realize you are truly sincere about connecting them to hope. Hope is not a big bucket. Hope is just a cup of water that refreshes a soul that has given up. They had given up. The transformer 12 years down because a tree in a storm fell and affected something. Now we're able to go there. I said, put it together. I have a minister of state. She's going to come here. What I am is a road runner. I go to the places, I meet them. Now, hear this. When I spoke with some of the team in my secretariat, and I asked, when last were you here? Because I'm doing a review right now. It's not like we're fully served. It's 100 days. But I am accountable. So if you invite me, I am here because you want to know what is really going on. I must be able to say, this is our startup.
Let's wrap up in 30 seconds. And this is a commitment that I like to you, the people who are watching. Women, when we talk about women, people think the mothers and old women. We're talking about girls inclusive. In 30 seconds, can you tell the people of the FCT what they should be expecting as a women's secretariat that's been set up? What are the practical, tangible things they should be expecting?
Well, first and foremost, there's infrastructural review. For the adolescent girl, our Minister Wike gave them a day of the adolescent girl child. We bring focus to them as a celebration and an affirmation that they are the most vulnerable, but yet the most valuable demographic in the trajectory of women and children. And we are giving the women with disability in the FCT. Look, we came on the radar of data capture and reportage, #1 in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, from a position of apathy with our FCT Response GBV team. It had not happened in the history before now. Before then, everything was sort of just left at a state of whatever. But we're able to read, I won't say the Riot Act, but the Abuja Act of Mr. Project. And everyone, yesterday, I was with international partners, I was with the press, they were asking the questions. If in 100 days, I can take a moribund result of 1,000 reports to 3,745 thereabouts, almost 4,000, and we have some that we just haven't been able due to a challenge with certain capture in terms of technology, but we're working on it. We have like 5,000 in waiting. So honestly, within this next 2 months, we should be able to almost hit 10,000. And what we're simply saying is that it's time. Women of FCT, shine your shine.
It's good
this
to
is
see
our
you.
color, yellow.
It's good to see you bright and shining.
Yes.
Dayo Benjamin Lani is the Mandate Secretary of the new Secretariat of Women Affairs Secretariat of the
Can I say one last thing? So for the men, trust the men. They say all this women thing. We men too. I said you're right, and I'm happy you put it as two. So let me handle the women first, and women too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's our show for tonight. Many thanks for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show today. It's Friday. I'll see you again on Sunday, 8 p.m. God bless Nigeria.